I'm an environmental lawyer representing businesses and property owners throughout California navigate the nuanced and complex world of environmental regulation and compliance. Today, I'm looking at the question of lawyer versus consultant, because this is an area of law that is highly technical. My ability to provide a legal defense for my clients depends on data and a lot of scientific questions like what kind of businesses operated at a certain site? What kind of chemicals were used? How many chemicals were used? What is the length of time it takes for them to travel through soil or groundwater? And so, even though I'm not a geologist or an engineer or a scientist, I do get to play one when I'm representing my clients. And that's one of the things I love about this area of law. Now, a lawyer is not a substitute for a consultant. And often we field phone calls from people who think they have a legal problem, but what they really need is for us to help make recommendations to a consultant for them to work through a technical issue. But there are also times where people think a consultant is all they need. And that's just not the case because having a lawyer is what helps you build your legal defenses, it can help save you money and insulate you from being blamed for problems that you may not have caused. So here are a few reasons why. So first, there are situations where a state agency has asked a client to do a suite of work. It's a consultant's job to look at that request and advise the client how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. What they're not going to do is tell you whether or not it's actually advisable to do that whole suite of work at this time. What we do is we ask that question of how is this justified? Is this my client's problem to do this? And we're often able to narrow the scope of work or come up with a strategy to do enough work to really test the waters so that our client isn't just leaping in and doing a whole suite of expensive work just because somebody asked. Now, second, sometimes the question is whether to undertake work voluntarily or to force the issue and see if the agency will issue an order demanding that the work be done. Now, at best, a consultant can tell you that there will be legal consequences if you don't voluntarily do the work. But what they can't do is outline why and lay out the risks and benefits of following one course of action or another. And that answer may be different for different businesses. That's legal advice, and that needs to come from a lawyer. Next, most consultants are going to be asked to write a report. And they're usually going to state findings and history because it's relevant to the work that they have done. What they're not doing is looking at those statements through the lens of potential legal admissions. And what can often happen is a very innocuous statement that's made in a report at one point in time gets picked up and repeated and restated throughout the term of the project to the point where people assume that that's what actually happened. What we're doing is looking at those reports and we're asking questions. Why certain information was left out or why certain information was packaged a certain way. Because we know those reports are going to tell a story and that story affects our client's legal standing. Along similar lines, these reports are written by engineers and scientists for engineers and scientists. And if I'm in a situation where I think my client may have to rely on this report in court, I want to be sure that it is as understandable and clear as possible. A judge does not have time to be learning all the legal jargon and the technical terms and acronyms and have me explain through multiple steps exactly what this report is trying to say. It really has to be as understandable as possible so that my client has the best foot forward. And for that reason, part of my job is to translate the very technical into the very persuasive. Now, finally, it's the consultant's job to look to see if there's a problem, how bad the problem is, and how we might fix it. Sometimes what they're not also doing is trying to develop the information that we will need to provide somebody with a legal defense. So by working with them, we can make sure that's included. Now, many of our clients come to us because their consultant recognizes that a situation has gotten complicated or that the client may benefit from legal advice. It's our job to trust the consultants when they tell us certain work has to be done, but it's also our job to make sure that we're asking the right questions and we're fully informing our clients so that we can tell them 100% this is what you need to do. Now, if you're watching this video because you or someone you know may have a problem at a property and has questions as to the legal ramifications, please feel free to share this video. And if there are other questions we can be answering for you, please feel free to share that in the comments and we can maybe do a video on it in the future.